Okay, friends. Now that we have looked into the important aspects of Indus Valley civilization, now we move on to the Mauryan art and architecture. With the advent of Buddhism and Jainism, which was a significant part of that Shramana tradition, friends, what else belongs to Shramana tradition? One is Buddhism and Jainism, the other one is Ajivika sect. In the 4th century BCE, the religious and social scenario of the Gangetic Valley began to undergo changes. As both the religions were opposed to the Varna system, Varna and the Jati system of the Vedic age, they gained patronage of the Kshatriya rulers who had grown weary of the Brahminical supremacy. As the Mauryas established their power, we see clear demarcation of architecture and sculpture developed under their style, under state patronage, and those that were developed by individual initiative. Thus, Mauryan art can be classified as follows. First is the court art. The Mauryan rulers commissioned a large number of architectural works for political as well as religious reasons. These works are referred to as court art. Okay, friends, definitely it's very important. They can ask you the definition of the court art and also the reason what the Shramana tradition is and why the Shramana tradition flourished. This is also a very important portion, friends, and definitely questions can come from this region. Okay, moving on. Places. The Mauryan Empire was the first powerful empire to come to power in India. The capital was at Pataliputra, and the places at Kumrahar were created to reflect the splendor of the Mauryan Empire. The palace of Chandragupta Maurya was inspired by the Archimedean palaces of Persepolis in Iran. Wood, see friends, this is very important. Wood was the principal building material. Definitely questions can be, they can be questions like stone was the building material. No, stone was not the primary building, it was wood. Megasthenes described the palaces as one of the greatest creations of mankind. Similarly, Ashoka's palace at Kumrahar was a massive structure. It had a high central pillar and there was a 3-story wooden structure. The palace walls were decorated with carvings and sculptures. Okay, friends, moving on. Pillars. During the time of Ashoka, inscription of pillars as a symbol of the state or to commemorate battle victories assumed a great significance. He also used pillars to propagate imperial sermons as well. On an average, 40 feet high pillars were usually made of Chunar sandstone and comprised of 4 parts. A long shaft formed the base and was made up of a single piece of stone or monolith. On top of it lay the capital, which was either lotus shaped or bell shaped. Okay, friends. See, friends, this is the monolith, a single shaft. This is the capital. On top of the capital, there used to be an abacus. Okay, friends, and on that was the animal figurine. This is our emblem, friends. This is our national emblem. Okay, the bell-shaped capitals, influenced by Iranian pillars, was highly polished and lustrous finish of the pillars. Above the capital, there was a circular rectangular base known as the abacus, on which the animal figure was placed. National emblem. The abacus and the animal part of Sarnath pillar forms the official national emblem of India. The abacus of the Sarnath pillar, 4 animals are shown representing 4 directions: a galloping horse west direction, a bull east, the elephant the south, and a lion the north. The animals seem to follow each other, turning the wheel of existence till eternity. Elephant depicts the dream of Queen Maya, a white elephant entering her womb. The bull depicts the zodiac sign of Taurus, the month in which Buddha was born. Horse represents the horse Kantaka, which Buddha is said to have used for going away from princely life. The lion shows the attainment of enlightenment. In the national emblem of India, the words Satyameva Jayate from the Mundaka Upanishad, meaning truth alone triumphs, are inscribed below the abacus in Devanagari script. The script is Devanagari script. The capital is crowned by the wheel of law. The lion symbolizes Buddha spreading Dhamma in all the directions. It was built for the commemoration of the first sermon by Buddha, or the Dharma Chakra Parivartana. Next comes stupas. Stupas were the burial mounds in India from the Vedic period. It is a conventional representation of the funeral columns in which relics and ashes of the dead were kept. During the period of Ashoka, the art of the stupas reached a climax. Almost 84,000 stupas were erected during this period. Although a Vedic tradition, stupa were popularized by the Buddhists. After the death of Buddha, 9 stupas were erected. 8 of them had the relics of Buddha at their Medhi, while the 9th had a pot in which the relics were originally kept. Okay, so this is the structure of the stupa, friends. The topmost part is called the chatras. The single line, that's called the yasti. This part is called the harmika. The stupa had a dome. The gateway, the gateway was called as torana. They had 4 gateways, that is the south torana, east torana, west torana, and the north torana. They also had an ambulatory passage with which they could walk around the stupa, which was called as the pradakshina padam. Okay, and then it had a stone fence. Moving on. The core of the stupa was made of unburnt bricks, while the outer surface was made by using burnt bricks. Core was made using unburnt bricks, but the outer surface was made using burnt bricks. This is very important, friends. Definitely questions can be asked. They can interchange it. Which were then covered with a thick layer of plaster. The Medhi and the Toran were decorated by wooden sculptures. Okay, devotees walked around the Pradakshina Pada, as I told you, or open ambulatory passage was taken for worship. Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh is the most famous of the Ashokan stupas. Piprava Stupa in Uttar Pradesh is the oldest one. The locations of the 9 stupas built after the death of Buddha are Rajgriha, Vaishali, Kapilavastu, Alakappa, Ramagraha, Vedyapida, Pava, Kushinagar, Pipalivana. Friends, all the 9 locations are very important, friends, because once there was a question, which of the following places is associated with the life of Buddha? Friends, now with this information, question can be, in which of the following places are the stupas associated with life of Buddha built? Okay, so therefore remember these 9 places. Moving on. Cave architecture. This period saw the emergence of rock cut cave architectures. During the Mauryan period, these caves were generally used as viharas, that is living quarters. Viharas means living quarters. There was a question, friends. Viharas and chaityas. Viharas are living quarters. Chaityas are the places where the monks could pray, or meditation rooms, that kind of prayer halls are called as chaityas. They interchange the option. This is how questions are asked in the exam. By Jain and Buddhist monks. Okay, while the early caves were also used by Ajivika sect. Friends, as I told you about the Ajivika sect, it is Ajivika sect is also a part of the Shramana tradition like the Buddhism and Jainism. Later they became popular as Buddhist monasteries. The caves during the Mauryan period were marked by highly polished finish of the interior walls and decorative gateways. Barabar and Nagarjuni caves in Bihar were formed during the time of Dashratha, the grandson of Ashoka. Friends, you need to remember who built the Barabar and Nagarjuni caves. This is how the caves looked, friends, in those days. Sculptures. Sculptures were used primarily for decoration of stupas in the Torana and Medhi as the form of religious expression. 2 of the famous sculptures of the Mauryan period are those of Yaksha and Yakshi. They were the objects of worship related to all the 3 religions, that is Yakshas and Yakshis. Friends, Yakshas and Yakshis are associated with all the 3, Jainism, Buddhism as well as Hinduism. The earliest mention of Yaksha can be found in Silapadigaram, a Tamil text. Similarly, all of the Jaina texts also talks about Yakshas. Yes, and also all of the Jaina Tirthankaras, all the 23 of them, all of them have been associated with the Yaksha, friend. That is very important that you need to remember. Yakshas and Yakshinis are a part of all the religion, all the 3 religion. Okay, friends, moving on. Pottery of the Mauryan period is generally referred to as the northern black polished ware. Okay, friends, it is very important. It's not red ware, it's not black, it's the northern black polished ware. And they were characterized by the black paint and highly lustrous finish, and were generally used as luxury items. They have been often referred to as the highest levels of pottery. Next comes post-Mauryan art. After the decline of the Mauryan Empire in the 2nd century BC, small dynasties sprang up in various parts of India. Among them were the Sungas, Kanvas, Kushanas, Shakas in the north, the Satavahanas, Ishwakus, Abhiras, Vakatakas in the south, and Western India gained prominence. Similarly, the religious scene saw emergence of Brahminical sects such as Shaivites, Vaishnavites, and Shaktyites. The art of this period started reflecting the changing socio-political scenario as well. The architecture in the form of rock-cut caves and stupas continued, with each dynasty introducing some unique features of their own. Similarly, different schools of the sculpture emerged, and the art of sculpture reached its climax in the post-Mauryan period. Comes the idea of the architecture with regard to rock-cut caves. The construction of rock-cut caves continued as in the Mauryan period. However, this saw the development of two types of rock caves, that is Chaityas and Viharas, as I told you. While Viharas were the residential place of the Buddhist and Jaina monks and were developed during the time of the Mauryan Empire. The Chaitya halls were developed during the same time, but they were mainly quadrangular chambers with flat roofs and were used as prayer halls. Friends, these two purposes are important. The caves also had open courtyards and stone screen walls to shield them from rains and were decorated with human and animal figures. Some of the example, Karle Chaitya of the Ajanta caves, that is of the 29 caves in Ajanta, the 25 are Viharas and 4 are Chaityas. Okay friends, moving on. Udaygiri and Khandagiri caves of Orissa. They were made under the Kalinga king Karavela in the 1st and the 2nd century BC near modern day Bhubaneswar. The cave complex has both man-made and natural caves. They were possibly carved out of residence of Jain monks. There are 18 caves in Udaygiri and 15 in Khandagiri. Udaygiri caves are famous for the Hathigumpa inscription, which is carved out in Brahmi script. The inscription starts out with Jain Namokar mantra. The highlights of various military campaigns undertaken by King Karavela are found in these inscriptions. Okay friends, what is important is Udaygiri and Khandagiri caves region, the Kalinga king Karavela near Bhubaneswar. This is important. The location is important. Rani Gumpa cave in Udaygiri is a double storied and has some beautiful sculptures as well. Moving on. Stupas. The size of the stupas started becoming larger and larger. First, stupas became larger and more decorative in the post-Mauryan period. Stone was increasingly used in place of wood and brick. The Shunga dynasty introduced the idea of torans as beautifully decorated gateways to the stupas. Friends, torans, beautifully decorated gateways to the stupas. The torans were intricately carved with figures and patterns and were evidence of Hellenistic influence. Example, the Barhut Stupa in Madhya Pradesh. Friends, they can ask, this Barhut Stupa of Madhya Pradesh was during the Gupta period, they may say, or they may say was a part of Mauryan. No, it was the post-Mauryan period. Similarly, Toran at the Sanchi Stupa was also decorated during this period. Actually, during the earlier period, it was made up of wood. Now it was replaced with stone. Sculpture. 3 prominent schools of sculpture developed in this period at 3 different regions. One was centered around Gandhara, second Mathura, and the third Amravati. Let's look at each one of them one by one. Gandhara school. See friends, it developed in the western frontiers of Punjab near modern day Peshawar and Afghanistan. The Greek invaders brought with them traditions of Greek and Roman sculptures which influenced the local traditions of the region. Friends, why? Why do you think that these people brought their Greek and Roman traditions along with them? The primary reason for that being that it was almost along the ancient Silk Route. That's why they were able to bring the sculptures. They were able to bring in the influence of the Greek and the Roman. They were actively trading with those parts. On the other hand, the Mathura and the Amravati were more isolated. They had more indigenous styles. Okay, so see some of the influences. See, one of the examples of the greatest Gandhara architecture is the Bamiyan Buddha of Afghanistan. Please note down, friends. These are some of the examples. how question can be asked from this topic is that what was the building material? The building material used by the Gandhara school of the art is the bluish grey sandstone. Okay, and the sculpture in this region had very much features similar to the Greco-Roman. That is, they resembled that of Apollo, the tall, huge figurines of Buddha in a meditative pose. His ideas like the Ushina, the Kirki, that is the halo, and this curly hair, all those things are characteristics of Greco-Roman characteristics. Okay friends, now comes Mathura. It flourished along the banks of river Yamuna in the period of 1st to the 3rd century BC. The sculptures of the Mathura school were influenced by the stories and imaginaries of all the three regions of the time, that is Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism. See friends, Gandhara school was only for Buddhism. This was for all the three, that is Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism. The images were modeled on the earlier Yaksha images found during the Mauryan period. The Mauryan school showed striking use of symbolism in the images, the Hindu gods representing the Avayudhas. For example, Shiva is shown through Linga or Mukhalinga. Similarly, the halo around the head of Buddha was larger than the Gandhara school and decorated with geometrical patterns. Buddha is shown to be surrounded by two bodhisattvas who were Padmapani. Padmapani was the one who was holding the lotus, and the other was Vajrapani holding the thunderbolt. Friends, remember, there can be a question in an exam with regard to Vajrapani and Padmapani. Okay. Next comes the Amaravati school. In the southern parts of India, friends, over here the Mathura school used sandstone, which was more common in this region. Sandstone was the material that was used over here. Okay. Amaravati, it was in the southern parts of India. The Amaravati school developed on the banks of river Krishna under the patronage of the Satavahana rulers. Friends, you need to remember the rulers who patronized the various arts. While the other two schools focused on single images, the Amaravati school put more emphasis on the use of dynamic images or narrative art. The sculptures of this school made exclusive use of the Tribhanga posture, that is the body with three bends. Okay friends, here you can see that here Buddha is not alone, rather he is with other. These sculptures show these Jataka tales, and that is how these are different. Okay friends. Okay, moving on. Gupta age.